Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. Grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax. Let's chat about what is going on up in the sky above. Today being the last day that I will be with you until after Christmas, I thought we would talk about what's coming with the new moon and the solar eclipse, as opposed to just the things that were happening for today. Although we will talk about today as well. There isn't, it's a big week. It's a big week because it's, of course, a holiday week. Around the world, we'll be celebrating Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever it is that you celebrate, in whatever way that you celebrate. And then on top of that, we have a new moon, and that new moon happens to be a solar eclipse. And that is making for some interesting energies for the week. Hopefully they are good ones for everybody. So I see people checking in already. Good morning, Londa. Good morning, Allison. Good morning, Christine, Ashley, and Rebecca, Elisa, Colleen, and Marissa. It's like you're joining up in partnerships, it looks like today. From my point of view, it shows me chunks of people that come in at one time. Now it looks like you're all coming in together, like Colleen and Marissa join together. Which I think is kind of fun in watching how you pop in. So this morning we start out with the moon in Scorpio and void, of course, and at 8:35, so in really just about 30 minutes, the moon will move out of the void and into the sign of Sagittarius. And the only connection it really makes today is with Venus in a sextile, and that is sort of a good kind of connection for the moon to be making. And let's talk a little bit about what the moon in Sagittarius will look like. That's the last sign before the new moon solar eclipse. So we'll talk about free-spiritedness. Today, the moon, as it moves into Sagittarius, triggers our inner need to explore and our wanting to be out in nature. If you live someplace where you can do that without getting wet or cold, please do. Travel. We are all probably getting ready to travel in some way to someone's house, or other people are traveling to our houses for the holidays. So that's right in alignment there. It is also an energy with the moon that takes us into questing territory. And when I talk about questing, I'm talking, it could be any number of kinds of quests. The quest to find a job, a quest to find a lover, a quest to find your spiritual truth, your quest just to find something, anything. So Sagittarius energy with the moon takes us into the quest, maybe for emotional fulfillment, for finding what kind of fills the void within us. The energy in Sagittarius is also about knowledge. And so we have an axis between Gemini and Sagittarius that's triggered during this kind of a moon. And we don't have any planets right now sitting in Gemini. So we're pulling in sort of that Gemini curiosity. So whenever there's just one side to an axis, it pulls in the opposite side. So we may be looking at information. We may be looking for facts and figures. We may just be looking at something that's interesting to us. So that's a possibility. It's an exploring of knowledge kind of energy. It's something I wrote this morning too about moral conscience. Reminded me of the days back in the 80s when Sagittarius was the home of Pluto. And there was this moral majority thing that was coming up. So moral consciousness or moral conscience. And what does that mean? And is it dictated to you from outside of you through religion or culture or your social status or what have you? Or is it something that comes up from within you that guides you from a different place, from a place of beingness or a place of higher knowing, a place of spiritual wisdom? All these things also with the moon moving through Sagittarius that might be popping up in our field. Sagittarius also asks the question, are we open to life? Are we having a process through which we have faith in the world and or in ourselves, or in that everything is going to work out in its highest and best? energy in Sagittarius is friendly and outgoing. It's spontaneous energy, which always prompts me to make that one condition that you are not emotionally defined in your chart. If you are emotionally defined, spontaneity is not your gig. Although you could spontaneously hug somebody or spontaneously go and do something, that's not life-changing. But you have to be careful in making big decisions in a spontaneous way if you are emotionally defined in your human design. So you can be spontaneous, yes, in small ways, but don't go overboard with that spontaneity. Remember, Jupiter is the planet that rules Sagittarius energy, and it can get big fast, and it can expand way beyond its boundaries. And then we would have to be hit with the reality of Jupiter now sitting in Capricorn and having us have to bring those boundaries back in. So we want to watch out for, with the moon in Sagittarius, of course, anytime we talk Sag, we're talking bluntness and honest communication. So there's nothing wrong with honest communication, but there is something wrong if it becomes hurtful and comes out in a way that hurts other people's feelings or isn't asked for. There's sometimes this constructive criticism that comes out of the mouth of Sagittarians that is blunt, but was also not invited. And so we have to watch for the next couple of days that we don't just blurt things. Make sure you're not missing nuance and details. Sometimes the moon in Sagittarius can see the big picture relatively easily, but doesn't tap into the small details and skips steps because of that. We miss something along the way. And then, like manifesting generators can do, skip steps, but then we go, oh my gosh, I forgot that. And we have to go back, pick up those steps and go forward again. So we're just a few things to watch out for the next couple of days, but not something that I think we've had the last month with the sun in Sagittarius. So we're really comfortable with that Sagittarian energy, I think. So hopefully we've all learned something while we were in that energy. And the one thing hopefully we've learned is not to blurt. Today's Pleiadian-Earth energy is self-regulating. It is the one day. So we are starting on the new 13-day spiral of consciousness with the Pleiadian-Earth energy. One energy is new beginnings. It's initiating energy. And interesting that it comes just 2 days shy of the new moon, and which is a cyclical new beginning. This is also a cyclical new beginning, but it is a cycle of that goes in a spiral as opposed to a linear kind of cycle. You could also say that the moons also take us in that same kind of spiral of consciousness. Is typically there are 13 moons in a year as opposed to the 12. We have 12 zodiac signs, but 13 new moons typically. And that's also tapping us into that spiral of energy. So self-regulating energy in the Mayan calendar was Etznab, and that was the flint knife or the obsidian knife. Very sharp edges. And here was an invitation to see things as they actually are, without illusion, without dressing it up, to be sort of aware of the real truth here on our planet, and what is the real truth, right? Is the real truth that we are limited human beings in our ability to affect our lives or do what we want to do or be who we want to be. So we are being invited to transcend our limited materialistic worldview and instead expand our view into something bigger, something more possible, and to cut through our limitations, to reach for possibilities, right? Self-regulating energy allows us to cut through or to cut out with quite good precision owing to the knife, right? The knife is obsidian, which is a very sharp glass-like material and could very much excise exactly what isn't working, what doesn't fit, and pull that out and then be able to heal the wound or to, completely put in something more that is more possible. So we're eliminating anything that doesn't resonate with the truth. And we have to be willing to do what it takes to grow, to evolve, to move forward. So we have really good energy today for that kind of thing. it's funny because these days, Etsnob always, or self-regulating, always brings me to a more pensive mood, and more, you know, introversion, I guess, is what a pensive. I like pensive because it causes me to start to move inward and think about things and where I've been limited and where I limit myself and how do I want to release myself, etc. So there's a whole many different things that this day can bring us, but mostly it's asking us to transcend that limited viewpoint that we have in order to see something more or to be something more. I hope that makes sense for everybody. Let's see who else is joining us. Everybody's just giving greetings. Natasha, good morning. Mimi, good morning. Natasha, we've missed you too. She's always at work, probably about the time that we're talking in the morning. So we haven't seen her lately. School is out for 2 weeks, so I hope we get to see you more often. Camille, good morning. Asa, good morning. Rebecca says, interesting how I've spent most of the day listening to Byron Katie, practicing seeing things clearly. Interesting, isn't it? I was just thinking about something. I woke up, I guess it was on Saturday morning. Yeah, I think it was Saturday morning, and I woke up and I had this memory, came quite unbidden to me. I wasn't like thinking about it, but it was there when I woke up. And it was not a happy memory. It was a very difficult period of my life when I was 17, I believe it was. And I woke up thinking about it, and I was like, what is going on here? Why would that come up today? And because I didn't remember dreaming anything that would have triggered that, but it got me to thinking about what was going on there in terms of my gene keys. Because remember, the gene keys has this developmental, there are 3 gene keys in your particular, what is it called? Hologenetic profile, that equate to the 3 periods of your life where you were developing: the physical from birth to 7, the emotional from 7 to 14, and then the mental from 14 to 21. Well, at age 17, that would have put me directly in the development of my mental field. And this particular instance was highly emotional. So an emotion was triggered, and my mental gear, I saw it so clearly for those few moments after I woke up, the pattern, right, where I needed to transcend something that occurred, because the panic that the experience brought me started me down a mental road of always, it's almost like an addiction to thinking my way out of things. So I was thinking about that this morning, going, so that comes up in the closing phase of the calendar, moving through, the 11th, the 12th day. 11th day was enlightenment. The 12th day would have been, 12th was Saturday, would have been understanding, and then Sunday's 13, and then today with the 1. So I was thinking about how that was closing out this cycle. And actually, with self-regulating energy, it does give us that access to a new beginning, but looking at how are you using your mind? And can we use it to cut through things and to release ourselves? Or do we get caught up in the old, in everything being repeated, everything in repeat? So take a look at that in your own life. It's encouraging, because as I looked at it and saw the pattern, I could see where limiting thinking can really get off on the wrong foot when you're young, and how that ends up, creating a situation throughout your life where anytime a situation that occurs that even remotely resembles what happened in a traumatic part of those first 21 years of your life, and can instigate a response that's really a reaction and not a response. So it was not fun for me to go through that, but it was very enlightening for me to go through that. So, it's a great time of year for us to do this, as we're letting go of the old, we're shedding the old, we're getting ready to move into something new, a new year, a new moon with a solar eclipse. So today's 1 day, which is one universally of new beginnings, but self-regulating, meaning you start a new you, right? Begin a new you. So anyway, And by the way, Rebecca, I love Byron Katie. I love her work. I love the work, which is her work, and how it can help us change our lives. So then what are we talking about this week as far as the new moon solar eclipse? Well, first of all, the eclipse is visible only in the southern hemisphere. So India, Malaysia, Indonesia, the western half of Australia, the part of Saudi Arabia and the Middle East, and parts that move, it's like a swath that moves mostly south of that area. So India and Malaysia, Indonesia, what was the other place? The Korean Peninsula. So most of us here in the United States, the new moon is occurring at night. This is a solar eclipse, so it would be the sun that is eclipsed, and we wouldn't be able to see it, right? So we wouldn't see it because it's already nighttime here on our side of the pond, if you will, or on our side of the equator. So we won't see it, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have an effect on us. It means that it's sort of invisible to us. So there might be invisible changes going on. And literally, a solar eclipse can only occur at a new moon, because what happens is the sun and the moon come together, and it's just perfectly aligned so that with the nodes of the moon, so that the moon appears to cross over the face of the sun, and we lose, if we were in the daylight side of this, we wouldn't be able to see the sun. We would see the corona around it, which is always a beautiful sight to see. But if you don't see it with your eyes, does it not happen? It does. It happens. So for us here, it's an invisible one, maybe something changing on the inner plane, something new moving within you. So the new moon is occurring at 9:14 p.m. Christmas night for us from the West Coast of the U.S. to the Central Time Zone. For those of you on the East Coast, it occurs at 12:14 a.m. on the 26th, the next morning. And Universal Time, for those of you who live in other time zones, it would be 5:14 a.m. Universal Time on the 26th. So it's sort of spanning across 2 days. And this is a game-changing new moon. The eclipses bring us more power to what is already in effect in terms of a cycle. So we're entering in the new cycle of the moon, and an eclipse makes that portal or that gateway a bit bigger, a bit more energetic. And for a few days leading to this, and days during, and then days after, are the most intense periods of new beginning and of that inner clock that's changing within you. For most of us up here, if you're in the southern hemisphere and you're actually going to experience the full moon or the new moon eclipse and see it, then for you, maybe it's more of what's changing in the outer world and how you want to play that out. So the degree is 4 degrees Capricorn. So it's at the very early stage of the sign Capricorn, where it happens to meet up with. So we'll have a sun, moon, Jupiter, and south node conjunction. Jupiter's actually at about 5 degrees, the sun and moon at 4 degrees, the south node just a little bit further than that at, I believe, 8 degrees. So it is the south node's relative proximity to the moon and the sun that drives the eclipse, right? So an eclipse happens when the sun and moon are either in fullness or in new phase, very close to the nodes. So the next moon eclipse is on the 10th of January, and that's a lunar eclipse, and that will be a north node eclipse. So they follow sort of in line together. And as we were talking about in the astrology for 2020, the nodes are going to shift into Gemini and Sagittarius as we cross into May of 2020. So you're going to start to see the eclipses not in the signs of Cancer or Capricorn like they have been for the last 18 months. We'll start to see them across Gemini and Sagittarius. So we're kind of closing out the phase of the nodal axis between Cancer and Capricorn, that we're closing out the series of changes going on within us across that axis and preparing then for the new cycle. So at 4 degrees Capricorn, we're really, looking at all issues then around Capricorn. And we've already been here because there's so much already in Capricorn energy. So I thought we would take a deeper look maybe into a new moon, solar eclipse, heavy transits through the sign of Capricorn. So Capricorn, of course, rules our future security. And I say future security almost tongue in cheek because Capricorn energy does look to the future, but it's creating security in the now so that the future is secured. And then in Capricorn energy, we have responsibility, response, able energy. Goals, ambitions, dreams, that kind of thing. That energy also comes through Capricorn. Success and recognition comes through Capricorn. Management skills. How do we manage our lives? How do we manage our time? How do we manage our resources? How do we manage people? If you're in a position of management in a company or in the work that you do, how do you manage that? And then, of course, it represents authority and our authority figures. So it could represent that person in your life that has held that position in the past or who currently holds that position in your life. And hopefully what you discover is that you need to be your own authority figure. So if we look at those things deeper, in terms of future security, so we see then that there's a connection to time in Capricorn. And that makes total and complete sense because Saturn, who is also in Roman times named Chronos, represents time and time in the now. But Capricorn also has us looking at what do we do in the now that is sort of taking preventive action or security, hedging our bets, if you will, a bit against the future. So time is involved in this new moon. So if you're finding yourself having a difficult relationship with time, then this would be a great time to, how many times can we use the word time in a sentence? This is a great period then for you to go inward and look at how your relationship is with time. And maybe there are some changes you want to make in setting your intentions for the new moon and for the very powerful eclipse. Maturity energy is also in Capricorn. As Saturn is the planet that rules the sign, and Saturn represents that older, mature, authority figure in our lives or ourselves in that kind of maturity. As such, it also takes in retirement and old age. And are we prepared, for our elder ages? And maybe in some respects, we are having to prepare to take care of our parents or our parents who are aging, preparing to retire and take care of all of the things that happen to do with that. And it's interesting to me that one of the news stories over the weekend, maybe it was even on Friday, as we have all of these planets already in Capricorn, and now we're preparing for this new moon, was a change in how we entertain our 401ks. And I really think that it was positive the way they were describing the changes in the 401ks and the retirement program that we have. But I thought when I was doing this morning, I went, oh, how interesting, right? That's this idea of future security and what we can do now with our money to grow it for the future came up right here in the window of this eclipse and also with this number of planets in Capricorn. So be watchful of things in the news around retirement or Social Security, Medicare, all of those kinds of things where we're setting up a secure future for ourselves is at play right now while the moon is in this part, when the moon is in this part of the chart, but also because there's so many planets in that part now. When we look at responsibility, we can break that down into a couple of different parts. Of course, we always talk about response ability, being able to respond and not react. So when we look at this, there are subcategories. For example, self-discipline. What does it take to be you? What does it take to be able to accomplish a goal? Well, discipline, right? Being able to be methodical and take a stepwise progression forward in something. Keeping your commitments, which also ultimately requires you to make sure you commit to the right things. So keeping commitments versus, I think, well, let's reframe this. Keeping commitments begins with making the right commitments for yourself, and not then just willy-nilly saying yes to everything and committing to this wide range of ideas or activities that you really energetically cannot keep up with. Because then, of course, you become irresponsible, not response-able, and have to work differently within. So really, this is about rethinking about how do you choose what you do, right? What are you going to commit to? And competency comes up here. Public image is also, when we're talking about Capricorn, we're talking about the planet Saturn, and we're also talking about the 10th house in your astrology chart. So you may not personally have Capricorn up at your 10th house, but the 10th house is naturally ruled by the sign of Capricorn. So when we talk about public image is what's seen in your 10th house of your chart, but Capricorn actually rules that. So we see often that Capricorns are very reputation oriented, and they think about how they're going to be seen by other people. So they dress the part, they act the part, and also suffer tremendously when they do not keep up with their public image, because remember, Saturn is also the planet that rules karma. So karma comes to roost very quickly when we're in the sign of Capricorn, when we are dealing with the planet Saturn, or when we're dealing with the 10th house. So what is your public image? How do others see you? It's important because it is a part of your competency in the world. Right? No one's saying that you have to go out there and be a celebrity. We're not talking about celebrity. We're mostly talking about, do you have integrity? Do people see you in the light of integrity and living your truth, as opposed to you being fake or living somebody else's truth? So those kinds of things come up with this particular phase of the moon in Capricorn. Also, when we're talking now about goals, we talk about goals, ambitions, your New Year's resolutions, your aspirations, your hopes. So this is very much about defining what it is that you want. What do you desire? So there's no constriction here in terms of deciding what it is you want. I think the constriction is that likely we have more trouble defining what it is we want. So in other words, Saturn, Capricorn energy, they're not saying that you can only go this way in and only choose this narrow range of things. It says, though, that in order to move forward, there has to be a goal or an ambition, or you have to be able to look at what do I want, right? So that question comes up here. What do you want? It's always a very difficult question. I mean, for me, it's the most difficult question, because I could want a million things, but are all of them things that I really want? Are they really true? Or are they things that I just sort of feel like I want, that maybe I'm picking up from the outer world that says that I should want these things? There's all kinds of questions around that. I remember a funny situation once. There's a book called, if any of you are struggling with what do you want, there's a book out there called The Passion Test. And it's got this beautiful purple cover. So, I mean, I was already drawn in because of the color of the book. And a friend of mine was becoming a passion test facilitator. So she was using us as guinea pigs to try out some of the techniques. And I had the worst time. I mean, me and one other woman, there were like 6 of us doing this for her. And the 2 of us we were partners. She partners us up, and neither one of us could. She's a Sagittarius. I'm a Gemini. So we're on the same spectrum, same signs, opposite signs. Both of us are sitting there going, I don't know what I want. And I had the hardest time with this. So to the point where my friend, who was the facilitator, had to take me in hand personally and say, okay, let's walk through this. Before I knew it, I had like 35 things that I wanted. The pendulum had totally swung to the other side. And it took a while. So sometimes this timing period that we're in can be really good for helping you to hone in by going through a process such as the passion test that makes you really look at what things are important to you, right? What is it that you really wanted to accomplish, right? If you could do anything and you knew you could not fail, what is it that you would do? And then make the plan to get there, right? That's where you start defining the goals. But you have to know what the what is first. So use this time between now and the eclipse new moon, and then right after that, for the possibilities, right? What's possible? And that book, The Passion Test, is written by Janet and, is it Bill Atwood? Somebody, Janet and somebody Atwood. Atwood is the last name. It is an excellent book for helping you get some clarity. It starts with the story about how this came about, and then it moves into the actual tests that you take. And it's fascinating. So that might be something really good to do in the lull of the holidays here. Get that book and do that testing. You might even be able to find some of those quizzes on the internet. I don't know if they're out there, but you can always check for that. So we're taking action, or we're preparing to take action with this new moon in Capricorn, and preparing to take action in a specific way. And that would be through goals, through methods, through step-by-step progression. So that's why, again, we also have this time of year where New Year's Day is often a day, where we set intentions, or where we are setting New Year's resolutions. When we say New Year's resolutions, we're saying, really, you're setting goals. The goal is I'm going to lose 20 pounds, which falls apart after I eat Christmas cookies or eat a bunch of food on New Year's Day, or Super Bowl, or something comes up and, you blow. Anyway, it's sort of funny how those resolutions really go nowhere, but this would be a great time because you have the power of the new moon, and it's also a solar eclipse. So we have that really powerful energy with us. Success and recognition also come through the 10th house, through Saturn, and through the sign of Capricorn. So it's about our accomplishments and becoming recognized for our accomplishments. Social status and climbing the corporate ladder, if you will, is energy also in this particular time period. While we also have the energy for setting goals and creating resolutions, we also have the energy for achieving those goals in this sign. So maybe you've already set goals, and maybe you've already set, your intentions, and now it's about achieving them. That's also in Capricorn. And social status, when I think about this one, it goes back to reputation. So you could think of social status as, am I what do they call those people? A social climber, a gold digger. That's the word I was thinking of, gold digging, social climbing the corporate ladder, doing what you need to do to get ahead, but we have to check the motivations for that, right? There's nothing wrong with climbing the ladder. There's nothing wrong with moving forward or getting better. That's not the problem. The problem is the motivation and what's behind it. What is behind that social status or that social climbing? Management energy is also in Capricorn, and management is about respect, gaining respect, showing respect, delegating authority. These are more of the nuts and bolts kind of energy in Capricorn. The how to be successful, right? How does a manager manage best? Well, by creating people that empowering their employees. Delegating authority sometimes. So those kinds of nuts and bolts energy also come up during this time. Authority, definitely. Your father, if you're a woman, your father, if you're a man, a different vibe for the different sexes. But, what did you learn about authority from your father figures? Who are your bosses? Who holds authority with you or over you? And who do you have authority over in your life, and how does that play out? But mostly this brings up to me, when I see the word authority, there's authority figures, that Saturn figure in your life, that stern disciplinarian. But there's also, how are you your own stern disciplinarian, or are you not even disciplined? And I'm not talking punishment kind of discipline. I'm talking about, once you set the goal and you have the idea, maybe you even have the steps, how are you at keeping up with that follow through, right? So we have follow through energy that is all related to you claiming your own authority, right? And moving through your life authentically. So that's also a part of this moon. Now, on the more negative side, and I think I probably showed you both positive and negative through each of these, but remembering control issues also are a Capricorn kind of thing to have to deal with. And by excessive control, what I mean is getting so serious minded that you lack joy. And interestingly enough, as we transit out into this new moon solar eclipse, the sun and the moon will both be at the gate 58, along with Jupiter and the South Node, teaching us about joy, vitality, and in the lowest or shadow expression, dissatisfaction or a lack of joy. And so we deal with that in Capricorn. We deal with sternness, being afraid to try something new, always erring on the side of the tried and the true. If you do the same things as you always done them, you will always get the same results, right? So we have to step outside of that somewhat. And so Capricorn can get caught up in that trap, in that psychosis, if you will. Further along, of course, is Saturn and Pluto in Capricorn. They've already been teaching us about psychosis. Keep repeating, and what happens? You get the same results. You have to step outside and not be afraid to try something new. There's pessimism in Capricorn. I've been feeling this myself. Pessimism, like I'm always so optimistic in my life, but lately, and of course I've been closing in on a Saturn return, optimism is hard to find. And it's a transit. This too shall pass, right? Pessimism is the negative end of Capricorn energy. Inflexibility and self-justification, also things that we have to struggle a bit with in overcoming through a Capricorn. So if you've been having issues around a lack of joy or sternness, pessimism, any of those things, then this is a great time to set your intentions for the opposite of those energies, for optimism, right? For being courageous enough to try something new, for being more free, less disciplined, being more joyful. So those negative kinds of connotations have a job in that they show us via contrast what we really desire or what we really want. So use it in that way. Now, in the body, of course, the new moons always have some part of the body that they are sort of ruling, for lack of a better word, because of the sign. And the sign of Capricorn and Saturn rules the bones, the joints, all of the connective tissues, tendons, ligaments that hold us together, as well as the disease process of arthritis. The gallbladder is also ruled by Saturn and Capricorn. Your knees are also, and then anything to do with the skin. So psoriasis, itching, breakouts, acne, all that kind of comes up somewhat through the health of the body when Capricorn is out of balance, or when Saturn is out of balance in your body. So hopefully that helps people get an idea of what you can think about or put your intentions on for the new moon and for the solar eclipse. And Marissa, yes, I can relate. You worked something out the best you could at young age and with the tools you had, but then realized that has created a pattern that does not serve you well in adulthood. Definitely. So then you have to develop new tools, and it's amazing when it clicks into place at various places in life. Yeah. And the question I had was, why is that coming up? I always ask that question, why? That's the gate 61. Hello, Saturn and Pluto at gate 61. We keep asking the question, why? And not always finding the answer to the why, but more likely finding the relationship that it has to something in your life, and where there's been an unconscious pattern that has asserted itself into your life. That's what I think I saw, the unconscious pattern, that out of that knee-jerk reaction of my 17-year-old self, that in other times in my life when I've been faced with a similar sort of challenge, that same reaction happens. That's the fascinating thing, when you're able to see these, if you can be objective about it and not get drawn into the drama of what was going on, to step back from it, you can see then how the patterns have developed. And it's really useful to me, I thought, oh, wow, I can see that now. So now if I'm experiencing something dramatic or traumatic, am I going to, my mind likely wants to take me in that same direction, but it doesn't have to. That's the cool thing, right? We now, once you see it, you then have the choice of what you do, to how you respond. That's the power. Camille, we are the same age and reminders are important. The planets are bringing such a huge shift for us all in 2020, but I am feeling it huge for myself. Yeah, I think, Camille, you were also born in 1961. So those of us born in 61, 62, and maybe even 63, you might be beginning to feel the energy of your upcoming or your impending Saturn return, because we're turning 58, 59, and 60. And some of you are a little bit younger than that. So even maybe people from 1960 might even still be feeling this. This is the energy of that Saturn return. And what were we thinking, right? Well, I know that was probably not the thought I had when I was coming into this incarnation, that, somewhere in my late 50s and early 60s, I was going to be moving through some very tricky energies, but apparently it's serving me in some way. So I totally get that. And all I can do is keep using what comes up as a way for me to, what does it mean for me? Right? What can I do about this? And maybe there's nothing I do, except that awareness then is key. So we have awareness coming up. We have maybe the past connections coming up. So there's a lot of stuff that we could work through. And of course, it's the holidays and thinking about being with family and friends, and that always calls us back to the past, and past Christmases, past New Year's, and likely we land on a mix of the really good experiences we had, as well as some of the more negative experiences, and then we can work through all of that yet again. So it's not bad. It's just awareness that we're gaining. Asa, yes, I have been feeling and seeing the shadows of the past. I've been trying to really look at the wounds of the shadow and shining a light of healing. It's difficult, but makes the transition better and lasting, if that makes sense. Definitely makes sense to me. For once, I'm feeling healing in those areas of my shadows. Very good, very good. Linda, good morning. Sarah, I don't know how to say your name. Chenard, good morning to you. And then Asa says, is the decan of Capricorn at 4 degrees matter in the energy of what we should look at in our lives? Well, in a way, yes, Asa, it does, because 4 degrees of Capricorn is in the first decan, which means that it's also the most powerful. So it's the true Capricorn. The first 10 degrees of Capricorn are the true Capricorn energies. So it's very Capricorn-y. And good. Discipline is my biggest issue right now. Yes, mine too, as I ate a blueberry muffin yesterday morning that I knew I shouldn't eat without having balanced it with some kind of protein. And I ended up in a fog and crazy feeling for a few hours while my body had to metabolize all of that sugar. Not a good plan. And Asa says that explains a lot about bones. Yeah, what's funny about that one, Asa, is that late yesterday, all of a sudden I got really achy and like my muscles hurt, my bones hurt. It was a weird feeling because I was warm and dry. I mean, usually if I get cold or something like that, I can feel that. But there was something really weird about it that I was thinking, well, am I coming down with something? But I felt physically fine. When I got out of bed this morning, I noticed that same feeling like, ugh. So things tend to crystallize for us in our bones. And so it does, if you're likely, if some of you are feeling like flares in your arthritis or dealing with muscle aches or joints hurting, it's probably calling your attention to places in your life where you have crystallized energy, where things have gotten tight, or where things have gotten pulled in and too compacted or constricted. And it may be a call for you to let go some, right? To move more, right? To do some things that create movement in your life. I'm not sure about the connection to the gallbladder, except that the gallbladder stores bile that helps digest your food. It helps the liver in digesting the maybe it's about digesting life. If you're having knee issues, of course, your knees are where we probably first notice that we don't have the flexibility that we used to have, where you're going up and down stairs maybe, and you're like, wow, that didn't used to hurt. Or you go to sit cross-legged and your knees scream at you. Or, maybe it's just that you've gotten too, again, kind of tight or too stiff in the way that you've treated life, too inflexible. And that's one of those more negative words that we think about with Capricorn energy. And how do we become more flexible? It's a call to become more flexible then. Also, the skin issue, psoriasis and itching and all of that. I always think that's interesting because the skin is the largest organ in the body. Just because it's on the outside doesn't mean it isn't an organ. It is the largest organ in the body. And given that Uranus is also doing some interesting things over the next few months, it's a possibility that it is eruption out of the skin through itching or acne or psoriasis, where we can see where it is again that we're still stuck and where we haven't, been able to release ourselves or liberate ourselves, which is what Uranus would be asking for us. So it's an interest, and when we transition into through 2020, we end up transitioning energy into Aquarius as Saturn moves into Aquarius as we move into late March, and then it retrogrades back into Capricorn. But the big hallmark, one of the hallmarks of 2020 is Saturn's move out of Capricorn and into Aquarius energy. So it'll be interesting because Saturn is still a co-ruler of Aquarius. So we may think we're done with all of that Saturn seriousness, but then we have to become serious about change, because that's what happens when you have Saturn and Uranus together in rulership of a sign, is you have liberation and freedom and Saturn's taskmaster kind of energy, both pushing for some change. So it'll be an interesting year from that perspective too, especially for those of you who are completing your Saturn returns or who are just entering your Saturn returns, whether you're in your 50s and going into your second Saturn return, or you're down here in your late 20s and early 30s, moving through your first Saturn return. So either way, it's going to be interesting, wherever you are in the cycle. Hello, Susan. Great to see you. Camille says, yes, exactly. 1961. Yes, I questioned my decisions to come from an early age. By 3, I was lucky in a way not to totally lose my connection with the before. Interesting. So let's look then now. What time are we looking at? Okay, because I do want to draw a card for us for the eclipse. But I want to talk a bit about the gate that the eclipse, the new moon, so the sun, the moon, and eclipse energy is hanging around. Jupiter is also there at the gate 58. Now, the gate 58 sits, I showed it to you on Friday, the gate 58 sits at the root center. The root center is the very bottom square. If it's brown, it is, or gold color, it is defined for you. If it is white, it is open for you. But no matter if it's open or defined, it has an energy of endurance, and it has the energy of pressure. The pressure in the root center is to do. And when we look at all of the gates on the root center, they tend to be triggers for action of some form. And not all of the actions are the actions we need to be taking, right? So, for instance, the gate 58 in the shadow is the energy of dissatisfaction. And there is this vague dissatisfaction that moves through, even if it is that you're trying to create joy in your life. Often we are reaching for joy to move out of dissatisfaction. So we have from stress to bliss here in the potential of this gate 58. But it's more than that, because the gate 58 joy and bliss isn't so much demonstrative and excitement, like we're running around just hugging and kissing everybody. Really, it's about emotional calm and mental stillness. And, when you think about some of the Christmas songs, always during Christmas time, the sun is at the gate 58. And it came upon a midnight clear, and we talk about silent night. And there's a lot of, that wintry feeling to the, it's pensive, but it's joyful in the quiet serenity. But it can also be the joy to the world kind of energy where it's, more exuberant and more excitable. But in reality, what we're looking at doing here in this particular phase is about creating that emotional calm and that mental stillness by living in the now, by our quest for fulfillment in the future. That very quest that we're on takes us out of living in the now. So there's this struggle going on within us that dissatisfaction creates the quest for finding joy. And in the finding of joy, then it almost then can sometimes feel more hollow, because did it last, right? Was it lasting? And was it a thing, right? We may be on that. What will bring us joy is a new car. What will bring us joy is that when I find my right mate, when I have the right job, when I'm making a certain income. These are all things that we think of that will bring us joy, that takes us out of dissatisfaction and restores us to bliss. But in reality, it takes us away from joy. It takes us away from bliss, because the foundation energy is that of emotional calm, mental stillness. That's joy. It's so weird. And I tried reading through this morning, because I've worked on this gene key many times, the 58. And it's a difficult one because it seems counterintuitive to us. It feels like the energy's pushing us, Capricorn energy pushing us to set goals, to methodically go out and adopt, these steps and to do, right? The pressure in the root center is about doing as opposed to being. The pressure to go out and find your joy, the pressure to go out and succeed, the pressure to go out and become enlightened, the pressure to move upward through the sacral and, be focused and concentrating in your energy to, get order out of chaos, to, what's the other one? To timing, right? All about timing. And on the other side, going over to the emotions. So we're always moving through some kind of impulse energy that's pushing us out, that we feel the pressure of, some of us more than others. If you have an open root center, you're likely under more pressure to relieve yourself of that dissatisfaction, to tap into more of the doing and not the being. Those of you who have it defined will always be out there trying to relieve that pressure in specified ways, depending on how it's, connected to the other centers. Some of you might have connections directly to the spleen, which means it's fear that this dissatisfaction is causing you to move out and try to solve or find a solution for. If it's connected to the sacral, it might be the energy of doing and doing and doing, so that I don't have to sit in the thought of, what am I doing and how am I doing what am I doing? Or the thought of being quiet, right? Having that calm, still mind can be worse for you than it is for other people. And then, of course, if it meets up over on the other side with the emotional center, we have provocation over there. We have sensitivity over there. We have love and romance caught up in that energy as well, and intimacy and imagination and fantasy. So we have lots of opportunities to experience dissatisfaction in our lives. And the need for us here is to come into that emotional and mental calmness and stillness, where from that place we can sit in joy, because it's just the joy when your mind isn't yelling at you, telling you 100 things, right? Or more, more than 100 things. So our quest for fulfillment is at once that double-edged sword, right? That is creating our way forward, but is also creating possibly that dissatisfaction. So what we have then in the potential for this new moon solar eclipse is coming to that still point, right? The programming partner, as Richard Rudd would say, to the gene key 58 is the gene key 52, which in its low expression is stress, and in its gift expression is, 52 is restraint and in its highest expression is stillness. Stillness and bliss are the highest expression of these two energies for this new moon solar eclipse. All right. What do you guys think about that? Linda Marie, good morning. So, okay, let's do a card. Let's do a goddess card for, do I see the sun coming out here? We've had so much rain that it'll be nice to see the sun. So we're going to draw a goddess card for us for the new moon solar eclipse. And then I think I'll still draw a Woto because a lot of us are very comfortable with that deck. So this is for us as collective. So not for any one of us, but for all of us. All of us could use this energy. And the goddesses we're not as familiar with. So I want to make sure we get familiar. Ooh, she wants to come up. Lakshmi. Ha! Fortune. Card number 27. Look at her. She's gorgeous. So if you're not familiar with Lakshmi, she is, I believe, a Hindu goddess of fortune or plenty, abundance. She's beautiful. That reminds me, I once had this wonderfully beautiful statue of Lakshmi, and I had a customer, and I cannot remember her name, but I had a customer and she was having tough times, and I gave her my Lakshmi so that maybe she could have good fortune. So let's look this one up, 27. And yes, and it was upright, so we have an empowerment message through Lakshmi, and it says, when the Hindu goddess Lakshmi comes to visit, she heralds a celebration of your purpose, wisdom, and compassionate prosperity. All your experience and all your skills are rich with meaning and purpose. As a result, you can expect to see evidence of this wealth in the world around you. You have the ability right now to create great success in your life, and what you have to offer has exalted value. The goddess of luck and prosperity says it's time to share your good fortune with others, and she will show you how it multiplies when you apply gratitude, praise, and a commitment to serve. If it's material success you intend, you shall co-create it. If it's a rich relationship life, you will attract and develop it. You are a magnet for miracles. Nothing is out of reach when the goddess Lakshmi comes calling. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Fortunate indeed. Fortunate. All right, let's do a wisdom of the oracle. God, that just makes me feel good inside. And you know what's beautiful about it is that really I don't need to do anything about this. It's there for us, right? We need do nothing. It's there. It's intrinsic. It's a foundational energy within us. It's on the root center. She's just reminding us of that. Okay. Oh, so we have TikTok. TikTok, and it was right side up, card number 30. So we have a reminder about Father Time, which I think is funny because that's also Saturn and Capricorn. And so TikTok says, the timelessness is the meaning. Timelessness, divine timing, immeasurable time. Okay, the oracle's message says, when humans created time, take that in, everything changed and contracted. People have come to look at life in a linear way, imagining that the past is behind them and the future ahead of them. But what if that isn't true at all? What if everything, creativity, beauty, chaos, and order were happening now in a glorious timelessness? You have all the time in the world to co-create the life you desire, so release your agenda. Let go of your need to shape each moment to your expectations, knowing that what is yours will never be withheld from you. Miracles are here right now and always show up when you need them, right on time. What a great reminder. What a great reminder. Shall I pull an animal card too? I think I will. So again, as I was saying, tomorrow I will not be on air. I thought I would, but I believe I'm going to go to Seattle with my daughter for her surgery. And Christmas Day, of course, I won't be on, but I will be back the day after Christmas, the 26th, Boxing Day in Canada. That's what my calendar says, Boxing Day, Canada. It's all good. Oh, we do have an animal, and it's bear, but upside down. So we have bear. Brown bear spirit says, take time out. What number is that one? Number 9. But it was in upside down mode, protection. So let's see what that means. And Lord help me, what did I do? Here we go. 9. So brown bear spirit says, take time out. When you become so frazzled that you can't decide how to move forward, brown bear spirit arrives to remind you to let go of your impatience in getting to the answers and solving the problems that face you. Now is the time for rest and meditation. Take a break. Let insights arise and know that you have plenty of time to make plans. Brown bear spirit reminds you that sometimes the best and most effective action is non-action, allowing the situation around you to reveal itself to you so you can better understand it. Remember that what is yours will never be withheld from you. That's the second time we've heard these words. So you really can relax and wait until the next right action is revealed. Miracles come from out of nowhere, and yours will arrive on Great Spirit's timetable. Sensing some coherence in these cards there, people. I'm thinking you guys feel it too. Some pretty key messages here. Luck and fortune are not something that we have to take action on looking for. It comes to us in the right time, divine time, and nothing that is truly ours will be withheld from us. That's a great reminder. And Allison, good morning. She says, have a wonderful holiday. May we all be blessed with health, wealth, and happiness. That's beautiful. Thank you. Natasha says, thank you. My new mantra, I am a magnet for magical blessing, for the magic blessings. And Marissa, I hope everyone enjoys time with their loved ones. Wishing your daughter a successful surgery and speedy recovery. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining me this morning. And I will see you all on Thursday morning as we see what's going on for the rest of the week. I hope you all have blessed Christmases or holidays and however you celebrate. Much love to all of you. And I will see you in a couple of days. Bye for now.